I texted it to you, honey. Lots of choices here. All right, it says it's preparing, so almost live. And then I guess I have to add a title. Kat, do you have to do this? Is there an easier way to do all of this?
I don't know, what are the clicks on that you're doing?
Like all the like, add a title, say something about it. You're not live yet. So you click go live.
Do you have to do that?
Yeah. All right, I think we're live. Yay.
It says live.
Fantastic. So for the most part, I am not going to pay attention. I apologize, I've not silenced my notifications, but I'm not going to pay attention to the Facebook group until a little bit later. So we're just gonna talk. So welcome everyone. We're really excited that you all have chosen to be with us this morning. And I see we've got, what do we have? How many folks do we have on Zoom? So there's 7 of us, and I'm sure more of you on our live Facebook within the group. So just so you know, so if you're joining us and you want to share this more broadly, we are recording it and I'll upload it to a YouTube link that you can share later, or you can go back and rewatch either in the group or on Facebook. So today we're talking about breath by James Nestor. And so I'm super curious, those that have joined us, who has read the book? And I can't see those of you who don't have your videos on. Sort of, okay. So Mary and I have read the book, Kat, Christine so. I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten about everyone says this is on their list to read and to understand and explore. And so it's really actually pretty exciting. Sharon, have you read the book?
No, I actually have it in my, I got it from the library just about a week ago, and it's on, I'm preparing to read it. So I was like, oh, good, let me hear about it. So I'm interested to hear what it says, and then I'll get in reading it. So
I love it. So you want the Cliff Notes first, and then.
Yes, I do. I'm like the person who likes to know the ending before I read it.
I actually do that. I think it might be hereditary. My mother does that. So what I'd like to do though is to start out, so Mary and I, it looks like Mary and I have read through it, which is all good. Richard, my husband's gonna join on the call. He also read through it and has pages and pages of notes. Sounds like you do as well, Mary. But I would love to know just briefly, I've asked Mary to co-host with me today because Mary is not only someone I admire and respect as a teacher, but has been teaching breath work for a very long time. And Mary, I'd love for you to just tell briefly where you are and the kind of breath work that you teach and why you're so curious about the book.
Yes, I'm Mary Opperman. I'm in Katy, Texas, and I've been breathing my whole life. So I got a good start, but always been passionate about breath. And if we had more time, I could tell you stories of my journey and how I got signal after signal after signal that this is my mission. I'm the one on this topic. And I'm a yoga teacher of about 20 years and a breath coach of about 10. And the breath modality I'm most passionate about is I call integrative breath. It's a specific type of breathing. And I was first introduced to it about 12 years ago when a friend of mine dragged me to a session, and I was pretty cocky. Oh, I teach pranayama. I know all there is to know about this, but I didn't. And that was life altering. And I knew in that moment doing this modality that was what I chose to really deep dive into. This book was a really great eye opener for me, because I was telling Melissa, just when we get to the point where we think we've got this, we think we know it all, something like this book comes along and bam, caused me to question a lot about what I thought I knew about breath. So my breath journey is a lifelong journey, but specifically with the situation right now with pandemic, I thought I couldn't breathe people online. I had a lot of resistance to it. If you'd have told me 6 months ago I would be breathing people online, I would have said, are you trying to fight me right now? Because Melissa knows I'm a really touchy-feely teacher.
Well, and that's interesting, because we had this conversation about, I asked you to do a segment for us for our caregiver wellness retreat. And you're like, yeah, I'm happy to do it, but it's like,
yeah.
But we get the most feedback from your segment. And also in general, in terms of the retreat itself, when we had it in person, the two things we get the most comment about are how good the food is and your breath work. Like, forget the rest.
Yes.
So it's like, okay. Yeah. It's powerful.
Yeah, it is. When I finally got over myself, my resistance, and I got a really clear signal a few months ago that, girl, that was the voice, girl, there is a pandemic out there where people are not breathing. Get your happy little butt out there and start breathing people online. So I'm doing it now in earnest, and it's amazing how people are responding to virtual breath sessions. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, I thought I would kind of bring it back because I want to talk about what you thought you knew, but not that you didn't. So I definitely want to talk about that. But just to kind of highlight some of the things, I mean, in the very beginning, he talks about, why do we even need to learn to breathe? We've been breathing our whole lives, which you joked about in the beginning. And that's absolutely true. But what I really appreciate about what he's done in this book is it is so research-based. In fact, you can go, if you haven't gone to his website, he has listed and cited every single study. The amount of research that he's done, years that he's done on this is incredibly impressive. And what's most impressive is it's there's a real understanding of the validity also of the science, which is important to me. It's like not just citing research studies, but it's like, oh, well, this study really isn't valid because, or this study really doesn't show anything because it doesn't, the sample size or the bias or whatever. So that's been really fascinating for me, that not only has he been able to cull through the research, but he's kind of tossed out what was invalid. And then others that like, he talks quite a bit about Swami Rama and how, they thought that Swami Rama's heart had stopped. And indeed, actually, it didn't. It was beating 300 times a minute. And so, how do you go back and test that? There's not another Swami Rama. So if anyone out there listening is a Swami Rama, I think you should contact James Nestor. They can do another study on you. But that would be, it's fascinating. Just all of the different angles. I would love, and I'm very curious about what you think about. There was a couple of things I wanted to hit today. One was Buteyko breathing. Are you familiar with Buteyko breathing, Mary?
Not super familiar. As the Buteyko people would call me a heavy breather,
Right.
you know, because it's a complete opposite modality. The Buteyko people call more active breathing over breathing, and the active breathers call modalities like Buteyko and some of the others under breathing. Yes. And the beautiful thing is they all have specific benefits when done consciously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hi guys, this is Sharon. I was going for my yoga therapy with Robin Rothenberg, and she had just started working with Nestor and doing the breathing. So I have had experience doing the Buteyko breathing, and it was very interesting. And my mind would like, no, this is not, and like I'm not getting enough breath, or I'm suffocating. But I have to tell you that I had a bad cough for years, like a chronic cough. And every time I start over breathing, or I start coughing again. But if I go back to do the Buteyko and really mindfully do the breath and hold my breath, it's not holding your breath, but suspending your breath and trying to get that, the oxygen and the CO2 equal, or, back into balance, my cough goes away. It is an amazing technique. And so, that's why I was looking forward to reading the book, because I had some experience with it, and it did change my life a little bit. So it was interesting.
Well, that's
it's a type of modality that.
Go ahead, Mary.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It's a type of modality that trains our body to breathe more, I guess, in line with its metabolic requirements. And I'm imagining that's what really created a change, a shift in your cough, because your body is so intelligent and responds in such a perfect way to what you require. And breath, whatever breathing modality you use, is a perfect tool to give your body, mind, spirit, what it requires. And I'll go off again, so go ahead, Melissa.
No, I want to hear. Go for it.
And that's all. I was just making a point that Buteyko breathing is, it's just more focusing on the metabolic processes in your body, and taking in, and that is a specific example of less is more, is that modality.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I had experience with it anecdotally when I lived in Malaysia. There was a studio that taught it in her training, all of her trainings, her mentorship, everything centered around Buteyko breathing, which I thought was fascinating. And very much like Sharon, it's uncomfortable. Retention of the breath can be incredibly scary for people. And so if you're not familiar with Buteyko, I'm not going to talk you through it because I'm not a Buteyko expert. I think it would be interesting for you to explore it on your own. But my understanding of the way that I learned it, it's almost trying to make the breath so imperceptible. In fact, if you were to stick your hand, in fact, this is how they taught us, to put our hand here and to not even be able to feel your breath, which, again, like Mary said, it almost feels like, for those of us taught to take deeper breaths, feels like under breathing, and a little bit like you're depriving yourself. But that's the theory. When we say take a deep breath, actually we're taking in all this oxygen, but what we really need to facilitate is more carbon dioxide in the body, that's what's fascinating to me about his research, and how it showed, in fact, because we never retain the breath, because we don't practice in that way. And because we're constantly trying to get more air in when in fact we need to just simply elongate and allow the carbon dioxide to do the work. I just find it like, why haven't we done this before? Why are we just now? It's 2020. What's the deal?
Well, you know, when we go into meditation, that's the breath we go into. You don't take deep
Exactly.
honking breaths when you're in meditation. You don't take honking breaths when you're sleeping. It is the breath that puts us in parasympathetic mode, which it's interesting because I've been teaching classes and getting people, trying to, you know, get people to be more relaxed because everybody's so anxious. And I was doing a speech about breathing, and I came across a fact that we should be in parasympathetic mode 80% of time, not 20, and 20% sympathetic, which means that every time we need to do something, we need to be in sympathetic mode so we can get going. But once we get there, we need to go back into neutral and live in neutral all the time. So that, you know, the practice of meditation and everything we do is learning how to not be reactive to, like, you know, something falls, you look, but you go back and let go instead of, oh my God, something fell, all, you know, for the rest of the day. I mean,
Well, I think
this breath takes you there.
I think I'm going to hit the pause button on that because I want to fact check you on the 80%, but and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of the polyvagal theory.
No.
Nervous
I will
system.
see if I can find it. I will see if I can find where I found it. But
I hear you, because we think about what you know, I think what I hear you trying to say is that all day long our body is trying to find homeostasis, and what we're trying to do is not go into you know, dorsal vagal response and fight or flight, and yes, sympathetic is normal. We need it to be creative and function and to do all of these things, but we also have to be able to not go into fight or flight, not go into fear and excess and all of that, and learn how to regulate. And the breath is the way to do that, right?
yeah, I mean, that, you know, the polyvagal nerve and all the vagus nerve and stuff like that, it's a different subject altogether, but it's the breath is so intimately connected to it. You can't really not talk about it if you're going to talk about breath, because they're connected. And if you start breathing like, you know, a bear is after you, the polyvagal nerve is going to be affected. You know, you can't separate the two in a way. But, you know, again, I didn't read the book, so I'm going to try not to pull it out that I don't know anything. I don't know what the book's about. So
I want to transition a little bit, Mary, and I think probably the most profound thing I found out of this was the study that he did. He decided that he would be so he found a scientist who was willing to allow him and one other guy do a research study. The scientist did not want to do the study because he knew how mouth breathing, he was actually afraid that he would cause harm to people. But Nestor said, no, take me. And so for 10 days, he did mouth breathing only. So they plugged his nose. And then when he took him off, the radical difference. I mean, when he was mouth breathing, he had sleep apnea, didn't sleep, started, you know, your body starts to manifest all kinds of illnesses. And then immediately when he took the plugs out and started just only nose breathing for the next 10 days, all of that went away. He could sleep through the night. He could, you know, I mean, blood pressure was back to normal and better than normal. I mean, everything, it was just 180 degrees. And this is a really fascinating thing for me. I actually had a student recently do a sleep test, and immediately they said to her, you need a CPAP machine. And I'm not a doctor. All I did was just raise my eyebrows. I was like, oh, why go there first? What is it about our world that we need to, and I'm not, and again, not giving medical advice, not saying you need a CPAP machine, fantastic. All I'm saying is, should we investigate all our options? Should we consider the whole spectrum of our body and how incredible this research is in terms of just nose breathing.
Yes, I watched yesterday a YouTube interview with James and an Irish pulmonaut. I love James' word pulmonaut.
I love the word
that's his
pulmonaut.
word. Yes, it's his word for breath geek. And I thought, that's what I am. I was searching for the word, but Patrick McEwen is an Irish pulmonaut, and he's a Buteyko trained teacher. And in the interview, I recommend everyone go to YouTube and watch that interview. It's about an hour long, but it's a beautiful exchange. James said, our nose is a use it or lose it organ. And then he went on to talk about his experience, and I really related because years ago I had sinus surgery and they completely plugged my nose and my sinuses, and for several days I was mouth breathing. And I hope, like he said, I will never do that again. I hope to never go through that again, because it was drastic difference, blood pressure, sleep apnea, all the things that he described.
What he was talking about, Mary, when they do the surgery, and some people do need the surgery, right? But the thing is if too much tissue is taken, because he was talking about how that's erectile tissue in your nose, and it's there to help filter and regulate and all of the things it does. If too much tissue is taken, that's where it becomes a problem, and you cannot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because all of that stuff in our nose is there for a reason. And there are just quite a small few people that may require some surgical procedure if that scar tissue is built up or whatever. But there's ways to use our nose, and mouth taping is another thing he talks about. Instead of a CPAP machine, one little teeny piece of Scotch tape, and doing that for several nights will make your nose do what it's required to do what it was meant to do.
Now,
so the mouth taping thing was amazing to me.
Well, that's interesting. Have you tried it yet?
No, I've not.
So I bought the tape that he recommended. He's like, he experimented with all these different types of tapes, and then he's like, okay, this one I think is the best, whatever. So that's in the book. And it's sitting there on my bedside table, and every night I look at it like, not tonight. Not tonight.
You go first.
Why not try it during the day?
That would be interesting.
Just to get used to it.
Oh, look at you and your creative ideas. I don't know if we can be friends, Sharon. Yes.
I want to get that tape. I haven't even got the tape, and I'd like, that's how, I'm not that good, but I just thought about that. I'll get the tape and use it during the day.
Here's what I heard him say, though, in an interview, a podcast interview. It's not like he still uses it at night. So it's not like you can just quit, use it for a few times, and then you're changed. You just have to keep using it. And that's the part I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's something I want to do long term. Yeah.
I kind of did a sort of a similar thing years ago when I got a lot of sinus obstructive nasal stuff. And so I got pretty much addicted to Affirming because I was using nose spray to breathe. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this anymore. So I did kind of my own thing to retrain my nose to do what it was meant to do. I used breathe right strips, to open nasal passages, and went cold turkey, and I rescued my nose, long story short. But I think with the mouth tape, sleeping, you're in a calmer state. an easier state, your breath, your metabolism, your heart rate, your pulse, your respiratory rate is in a little calmer situation. So I think doing it at night as opposed to doing it during your day might make a huge difference.
Yeah, I talk way too much. And of course, when you talk, you are breathing through your mouth. And that's, it's something to think about if you're very verbal. Mary, I'd love to kind of consider this a little bit of an intermission here. And if you're willing, can you lead us in a short breathing exercise, and then perhaps tell us just a little bit about it, what the benefit would be, and why it's different from what you learned in the book.
Yes, integrative breath is breathing in and out through your mouth in a very conscious way. Some people may consider it active, heavy breathing, but it's more finding your own pace of breathing. The reason you're breathing in through your mouth is because you're taking in a lot of prana, a lot of life source energy, and you're saturating every cell, every bit of your body. Y'all, our body cues off the subtle movement or motion of a breath. I was talking about how intelligent our body is. And what you're doing in integrative breath is you're super oxygenating your body because you're getting more air in through the mouth. And this was a side note, one thing that freaked me out when I read the whole thing about mouth breathing. Oh my God, that's what I'm teaching. But then I came full circle and calmed down. And this type of breath, when done consciously for 45 minutes to an hour, has amazing recuperative powers, gives you amazing clarity, super oxygenates your brain, your body, your whole being.
Well, I will say,
So,
I heard Nestor talk about that because Wim Hof is someone that he recommends, and Wim does not say to only breathe through your nose or only breathe through your mouth. He just says breathe, because in fact,
right.
most of us don't actually do regulated breathing exercises with the intention of improving, having all the benefits that you mentioned. And he said, so the key is do those exercises, mouth open or closed, and the rest of your day, focus on nose breathing. Allow yourself to be more
Right.
conscious of breathing in and out through the nose. So I just thought I'd mention that he also concurs.
Yeah. And I tell my students, you're not going to walk around all day in your normal life, but with a specific modality, when you choose to do this, it has specific benefits. So what we'll do is just do go ahead and sit up tall and close your eyes. And what I'll do is take you through first what I call the 3-dimensional breath, and then we'll do a little bit of integrative breath. So just closing your eyes and sitting up tall, just find your breath. Easy in, easy out. Where do you feel your breath moving in your body? This is super important. Awareness of the movement of life source energy. This is really key in integrative breath, as we find where our breath is moving and where it might not be moving. So imagine now your torso is a rectangle. From one shoulder to the other is the top of the rectangle, down the sides of your torso through your ribs and down to your hip crease is the side of your rectangle, and the bottom from hip to hip is the bottom of your rectangle. So if you can, take one hand to your belly, and if you can reach back and place the other hand behind on the opposite side, begin to breathe into the front and back of your rectangle, a breath of depth. Just the front and the back. Easy in, easy out. You're following the natural tide of your breath. There's a fine line between forcing your breath and directing your breath. So now move your hands to your sides of your rectangle at your ribs. And breathe in and out the sides of your rectangle. A breath of width. Imagine wide. Feel your ribs expand and contract with every breath. This is your diaphragm doing what it was created to do. When you feel movement, it's your diaphragm working. And now take your hand up to the top near your collarbones and the other hand down near your pubis. And breathe in the length of your rectangle. So breathe in a breath of length, bottom to top. And if you're new to this, it may be a little bit of a challenge to isolate these three. And at first, it may be more of a thought than a thing, or a visualization rather than a thing. And now relax your hands down and take a three-dimensional breath, front to back, side to side, top to bottom. Feeling as if your whole torso is expanding. Now that you're in touch with that three-dimensional breath, I'm going to invite you to relax your jaw open and take a deep inhale, a relaxed exhale with no pauses, in and out through your mouth. So continue this deep inhale, relaxed exhale, no pauses, in and out through your mouth, and find your own pace. Again, there's a fine line between directing and forcing. It's a connected breath. That's the key, connected. Many of us are not used to connecting our breath. That's maybe why it may feel a little rapid to you, is because of that connected piece. Right after your exhale, you're taking in another inhale. Continue just a few more breaths now at your own pace. Your inhale represents your receiving for you. Receiving, taking in all the good that you deserve. Your exhale represents your letting go breath. You're surrendering, exhaling like a sigh, letting go of what no longer serves you or supports you. Inhale, receiving, exhale, letting go. Inhaling, I receive all the good the universe has for me. Exhaling, I let go of what no longer serves me or supports me. Just a few more integrative breaths. And now just relax, close your mouth. Rest in your breath. Breathe in a way that is most easy and comfortable for you, because we are made for ease. We remember our ease. So rest in your breath for a few more breaths and feel now where your breath is moving in your body. Belly, chest, ribs, throat. You can't get this wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's simple awareness of where your breath is moving. And now as you're ready, take 3 life-affirming breaths. A deep inhale through your nose and sigh it out your mouth. And just a couple more at your own pace. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, so we didn't do this for very long, but with an extended time doing integrative breath, a lot begins to happen, and we don't have time for all that. So call me.
Well, and again, super interesting, because he talks about in the book, hyperventilation and breathing in and out through the nose. And in fact, I have been experimenting, getting back into cardiovascular fitness. I love prefacing to that, experimenting. So riding a stationary bike, and I've been focusing on different breathing techniques when I do it. The other day I tried to do alternate nostril breathing. While I was doing that, I thought I was going to die. I was like, whoa, oh my God. Okay, I just need to focus on nose breathing, because that's hard enough. But cutting your airway in half and doing alternate nostril while you're riding a bicycle. So what I found really, really interesting, and as I've been practicing that, is how experimenting with how many breaths I can take through my nose versus my mouth, until I feel like, as my heart rate is increasing, until I feel like I just can't do it. And so that's what is interesting to me. If I'm raising my heart rate and breathing in and out through mouth, I mean, that really is hyperventilation, and it's scary, actually. So the style of breathing that you've been doing, I find fascinating. And I think I just keep coming back to, when you began, you said most of us just simply aren't aware of how we breathe, or breathing in general. And so I think, to me, that kind of breathing practice, and also what I know you do in person in regards to touch and connection, And you had us do that in the beginning. What did you guys think of the 3-dimensional breath? Kat, Christine, or Sharon? Yeah, thumbs up.
I love that breathing. It's 6-dimensional really, and it means all dimensional ultimately.
Yes.
Because, you know, those are just the easy planes that we can connect with, but it means in all directions, because that is the expansion happens in all directions and comes back from all directions back to the center. And it's really nice. I think it's one of the best, if we can just drop into that way of breathing, then we'll kind of be okay, because it also very much relates to how we relate to the world around us. It's like how we are in interchange and communication with the space around us, and that means the whole world around us and how we relate to life, to people, to everything.
Yeah, it's actually multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
I found the isolating up and down was really, really, really difficult for me. I spend a lot of time, I do a lot of yoga, and I spend a lot of time belly breathing and focusing on that style. And when I put it all together, I can feel it go up, but just the isolating, trying the length of the breath, that was fascinating for how difficult that was for me. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think what's, the things that we tend to do in yoga, which is make it more somatic based, learning how to, feel from the inside out. And then on the other side of somatics, the visualization. And then, I think it's fascinating. I love how you tied in different elements of that. And I think it's important to remember, I know a lot of people that are watching right now are yoga teachers, that just one way of communicating it might not reach everyone. So having different ways to say something, which involves tactile, which involves visualization, which involves pacing, which involves all of these different things. And I find that fascinating. If you go to Nestor's website, I was like, wow, Mary, you should do it. You probably have a YouTube breathing, but he's basically got a whole page of just YouTube stuff. It looks like he's just pulled up. Yeah. But there's an example of the Irishman that you were talking about. There's him teaching about Buteyko breathing. There's a video on there of that, which I think is really, I like the way he explained it. It seemed really a little more thorough than when I learned it at first. But he also talks about, and in the back of his book in the appendix, he breaks down all of his favorite breathing methods as well, which is, it's like, oh, let's make that simple. That's really nice. Thank you for that. Which I really also appreciate. And he does talk quite a bit about yogic breathing. He did go into, I wanted to bring one more thing up, but before I do that, is there any questions? Is there any like burning breathing questions? Pun intended. No, I see we got a few more people. Hi, Denise and Richard. I know you have pages of notes. You're here. No. A couple of other key things that I found really fascinating was the research that he did in terms of the jaws and the skeletons, and kind of going back. He goes to Paris and he tunnels. I don't know if you knew, but about the massive graves that were just underground there in Paris, and they look at skulls and and then, I mean, wow, amazing to think about how hundreds and also thousands of years ago, we had straight teeth. And it wasn't until, we started changing the way we eat, soft food and mouth breathing, that all of that has changed. It's really quite fascinating, actually. Makes me want to eat a lot of carrots.
Yes, he has a chapter in there just entitled Chew. And he talks about how our diet has evolved in such a way that we have a softer diet and we don't chew as much as our ancestors used to. And we're talking just as short a time as the past 300 or 400 years, this has really become a thing.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. And it's so fascinating because it makes me think about, God, all I did was feed my kids soft food, and and they're still eating soft food, and yikes. But the fact that
Another interesting, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Mary.
Another interesting thing that I didn't get in the book, but brought out with the interview with Patrick, and I think it was Patrick that brought it up. They did some research with babies who died from SIDS, and every single one of them had a high upper palate. Even as infants, the structure of their palate was skewed. So that was like, what? That was fascinating.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And he talks about a little bit how the guy that's controversial, the reason that we started orthodontics wasn't originally intended to fix teeth necessarily, but to fix the way that we breathe. And then it's just morphed into having perfect teeth. And so the guy that just now widens mouths so that our airways have more accessibility. The whole field of study of being a pulmonaut is just amazing to me. And I think, if we take away anything from this, it's sometimes we go and we're hungry for the next big solution. And it's probably why a lot of people picked up this book. And yet what we have access to is free, right? And it's accessible to us in terms of how we breathe and the way that we breathe, what we put in our body. I mean, I think we, like my friend who was ready to get the CPAP machine, or what's the next big solution? What else can I purchase? What else can I? and I think sometimes just backing off of that a little bit and examining how we do things and what we do can be really powerful. That's one of the things that it reminded me of. Sharon?
Well, continuing on that thought of the CPAP and the different things that help us get better really actually weakens us, because our body was made to help us heal. There's so many mechanisms in our body that we have to suffer a little bit to heal. It makes us stronger. And as we weaken our body by taking things that are outside of our body, because and I'm not saying sometimes we definitely need things to help us. But again, it's that last trying everything until you go, okay, my body's just not able to do it. Now I'm going to try the other things. And I'm not talking about cancer or anything. I'm talking about headaches, a sore back, the little things. But those little things help us be stronger for the bigger things. It's just like anything else. We practice to be stronger so that when the big thing comes, we're strong and we're resilient. And breathing is just a big part of being resilient. It's just the baseline of being resilient. And I don't think people understand how important that is. When I work with people, with friends, family on, yoga, I'm trying to be a yoga therapist, and I would work with them and I teach them breath. The first thing I do with everybody is I teach them how to breathe, not how to breathe, but to connect to their breath. And I'll call them and say, you ready for the next? No, I'm fine. I'm great. I've never felt better in my life.
I'm healed.
And I go, okay, I know, I'm healed. And they don't. Their breath just is the beginning. It's the first thing we do when we become alive. It's the last thing we'll do when we die. And in between, it's our life. It's everything. And I just, I'm a breath pusher. I push people. I try to push people to breathe correctly.
So
I totally agree.
So as we wrap up, because I think we could, like Mary said, talk about breath, and maybe we need to have a part 2. I think that would be really great. Mary, what's your biggest takeaway from the book?
First of all, the amount of research he's done was huge for me. I approach breath from a more airy-fairy metaphysical subconscious, and I require grounding and facts and scientific research. So I really appreciated that piece of it. I think in the interview, he said he cited 557 references. That's a lot of research. Quite impressive, like Melissa said. But my biggest takeaway is to be a generalist. There's a gazillion breath modalities out there. And as I tell my yoga students, be a generalist, try out different teachers, see what resonates, what lands for you. Each one has its own specific benefit. So try as many breath modalities as you can, just like trying anything else, any other teacher, because you'll find something that really, really will speak to you and will teach you. And the more we do different things, the more we're open to learning and receiving.
That's what I've taken from our conversation, Mary, in terms of it's so inspiring to connect with people who are open. So when we decide that our way is the only way, or this is the best method, or yada yada, we limit ourselves and we limit our students and we limit everything. And so again, just to commend you, Mary, like open to, after 10 years of a specific style of breath work, to be like, oh, okay. Here's some information, and how can I integrate that? And may we all be like that. May we all be open. And also, I love what Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, she's like, this is my experience. Don't take it from me. You should experience it. That's your litmus test in terms of whether something works or not, so don't believe me, you go try. And that's what I would say overall. Anything else before we wrap up, guys? What can I practice instead of purchase? Yeah, that's a good point, Christine. No? Well, I always have fun at this, so thank you for making time and showing up. This will live in our restorative and sustainable yoga group, so I'll encourage you, as you're reading it, because I know many of us are in different phases of reading the book. If you find something like, big ahas that you want to share with everyone, or something that brings up a question for you, I'd love to keep the dialogue going. So maybe just pop it in the comments there. If you have a specific question for Mary, you can tag her. That way she'll know to go back and look at the comments there. And then again, we'll have this on an external link in YouTube so that you guys can share it. But I'll just end with, the benefits, right? And specifically the benefits of breathing through our nose throughout the day and night. Lung expansion, our teeth are straighter, airway development, a decrease in hypertension, high blood pressure, decrease in depression, decrease in headaches. And these are all based on studies that were done. And it's really exciting to know that it's fully accessible to us. And also to know that, like everything, it's a practice. So my husband has a saying, it's day one again. So like, if you don't practice one day, the next day you just start over. So may every day be day one again. So thank you, everybody. I am excited you're here. If you are on Zoom, hang just for a second and we'll close out our live segment. So here we are.